Attention, if you're attempting 714-9593, 1-800-7...
and offers Fortune 500 strategies, tactics, and tools to sales professionals and business leaders. He created this show with one thing in mind, for sales professionals to share their secrets with each other. Join us every Wednesday at 12 to 12:30 Eastern Time, or sign up for updates on Mike's mailing list at salessense-solutions.com. Mike appreciates you listening and wishes you good luck on your next sales call.
Thanks for calling 413-584-3490 and 413-586-2388. Green marketing, resumes, publishing, consulting, and more. Please leave messages for Shel Horowitz, Dina Friedman, Alana, or Raphael. Please say your name and phone number slowly. Thanks again for calling.
When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Hello, Shel.
I'm sorry, but I didn't hear anything. At the tone, please re-record your message. I'm sorry, but I didn't hear anything.
Hello, Shel.
Hi, Mike.
Yes, so I'm very excited to have Shel here today with us, and Strategies to Improve Your Profile and Your Planet, co-authored with J. Conrad Levinson, was published in January by Wiley, demonstrates that business can be green, ethical, and profitable, using examples from Fortune 100 companies to solopreneurs. The book shows how ethics is not just about the fight, the right thing, but the profitability, why most business shouldn't even worry when market share goes down, and powerful partnerships even with competitors show to get the green message out without greenwashing. I like that. And so for more information, go to guerrillamarketinggoesgreen.com. So, Shel, without further ado, how are you this morning?
Just fine, Mike, and I do want to correct that the actual subtitle for Guerrilla Marketing Goes Green is Winning Strategies to Improve Your Profits and Your Planet. Yeah, I'm doing great. It's a sunny day after 3 days of clouds, so that always makes me feel good.
Absolutely. And I'm excited that we finally connected. I know we had so many different technology problems in the past, so it's good to hear your voice. And, you know, it goes back to your title of the book of Going Green, and, you know, getting back to the basics and kind of helping the planet as well as, you know, helping businesses grow. So can you tell a little bit more about yourself to the guests here today?
Sure. Well, I got involved both in the environmental movement and in marketing all the way back in the 1970s. And for most of the intervening time since then, those were kind of two separate pieces in my life. And starting really in late 1999, early 2000, I started finding ways to braid those two strands together into something very coherent and very powerful, that the best marketing is, in fact, green marketing, and that the environmental world can learn a lot from the marketing world, and vice versa. So this really crystallized for me when I was involved in a local campaign here. A developer decided that the mountain 2 miles from my house was the perfect place to put 40 trophy homes without regard for impact on traffic and viewscapes and all the other things. And this was right next to the mountain that always wins the best place to take out-of-town visitors in the local newspaper poll. So I thought, well, I don't think that's a good place to do that. There's plenty of places that make more sense. So I organized a group called Save the Mountain, and at that point I really brought to bear everything I'd learned about marketing and about community organizing on environmental issues. And really, I expected that, 20 people would come to the first meeting, 5 of them would be willing to do any work, and over the next 5 years, we'd make it so expensive and difficult for the developer that he would eventually abandon it. Well, what happened, Mike, is that we got 70 people coming to the meeting. We had another 30 call and say, please keep me informed, I can't make it tonight. We formed several committees. We had an active core of about 35. We hit this thing every way that you could from both a marketing and environmental point of view. We had farmers involved. We had students involved. We had business people. This was really something that cut across the entire community. When the dust settled, just 13 months later, we had involved literally thousands of people. And I live in a town of 5,000 and in a county of about 150,000. So to get 5,000 people involved is pretty huge. And we had passed some legislation in town. We had done all sorts of things, and we ended up protecting 85 acres of the 105 permanently as open space and as part of the state park that's next to it. And we did allow them to build 2 houses at the bottom, which was reasonable for the site. So since that time, for the last 12 years or so, I've really been looking at how can these two pieces come together. And I did a book in 2003 called Principled Profit that started to explore some of these ideas, and particularly more of the business ethics side. And I think that if you're talking about business ethics, you really have to be talking about the environment, because not to care for the environment is simply unethical. So that led me into looking more thoroughly at green stuff, and just about that time, the green movement finally bubbled up out of the fringes and into the mainstream, and all of a sudden everybody was talking about climate change and greenhouse gases, and even things like soccer moms organizing to get soda machines out of their kids' schools. And it's become a real kind of pulse in society. And so now I show business owners how they can reach the green consumer and how they can make themselves a more green operation, and in turn how to get the powerful benefits of tapping into that incredibly fast-growing market. It's growing at something like 29% a year. So all of these things came together in writing Guerrilla Marketing Goes Green, and also in my syndicated columns, Green and Profitable and Green and Practical, which come out every month.
Do you think a green company actually increases sales? And I know that's a loaded question.
Well, if you ask me, you're going to get a yes answer, of course.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think, again, this green market is going so fast. If you do Google searches through the archives for like 2002, 2003, you see hardly any mention of issues like climate change and global warming compared to what you see now. The consciousness has really shifted. I think some of the reasons it has shifted include events like Hurricane Katrina, the big Asian tsunami of, I think it was early 2006, the more recent tsunami and earthquake in Japan, droughts, wildfires. The planet seems to be resisting in some pretty big and important ways. So that's one thing that's changed. Another thing, I have to say, Al Gore gets some of the credit for making this a mainstream issue. And I like to think that I had at least something to do with it. And but you see a company like Markel, which makes household paper products. Markel was a pretty early pioneer in using recycled paper as its major raw ingredient. Would you like to guess what year they went to recycled?
They haven't yet. No, I don't know. I'm just probably let's say 2009.
Try 1950, 1950. But
wow.
They didn't tell anybody. It's only in the last 8 or 10 years that their marketing really reflects this, and I think it's because that consciousness has become so much more powerful. But they went. By the way, they declared bankruptcy in 2006, and then by 2009, they shifted their whole packaging and branding to really focus on the recycled piece and on being an environmentally friendly household paper products company. And, so would you rather wipe your tush with something that didn't have to cut down virgin trees, and would you like to help them save 1 million trees by buying recycled toilet paper? They went, in just a few months, they became #1 in the category for... They sell more recycled toilet paper than anybody else. And I think it's because they finally owned this incredible legacy that they had. They finally realized what a huge marketing advantage it was and started trumpeting.
I do believe I do believe it is a huge marketing strategy, and a lot of companies aren't jumping in on that. And, do you really think that big business cares about going green? I mean, I know it bothers me because I'm a recycler. I do what I can, and I try to always save things, et cetera, et cetera. But do big business? Yeah, it's a nice little concept. Go green, makes people warm and fuzzy. But do they really do anything on the back end?
Well, I think this business cares first and foremost about profit, and what they've discovered is that going green is enormously profitable. You look at a company like Walmart, okay? Walmart is not motivated by human kindness or protecting the environment or any of the sort of cool and groovy tree hugger stuff that a company like Ben & Jerry's might be motivated by. Walmart is motivated by making the most money for its stockholders and cutting the prices for its consumers. Walmart has discovered that it is enormously profitable to go green. It has become, in fact, a very, very green company. They've forced their suppliers to go more green. They've changed the way they operate their fleet to reduce fuel enormously. They've changed some of the store designs. They've brought organic food to an audience of people who will never set foot in a Whole Foods. It's a completely different market. And they are not doing it, again, to be cool and groovy. They're doing it to make a fortune. So there's a very good business case for going green. If Walmart wants to do it, then it's going to be a good thing for business.
You can make a fortune on recycling. And I don't know why more companies don't jump in. It's just like when you stay at a hotel. Put the towel or put the tent on your thing if you want to, change the sheets or put the towels on the floor. And I'm like, I don't know. You know what I mean?
And did you notice how fast that spread through the industry? It went from like, this is kind of cool, a couple of companies are doing it, to everybody's doing it. Because this was a huge cost-cutting measure that was sold as a green initiative, which it is. But, it wasn't, again, it's making that business case. I think a lot of companies are afraid of it because they think that going green has to be expensive or difficult. And the reality is that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit out there. I mean, yes, it costs some serious money if you're going to convert to solar power and put up a huge array on your roof. That's not cheap. But there are so many things you can do that are easy and cheap and often that pay you back many times over in a very short period of time. And sometimes even if they're not so cheap, they're still worth doing. One of my favorite cases is, of all things, the Empire State Building. Now, the Empire State Building was built in the early 1930s at a time when gas and oil were almost too cheap to measure. It was during the Depression. Nobody had any money. Gas was a few cents a gallon. And, it was not built for energy efficiency. It was built to be the tallest and most dramatic building in the world, which it was for decades. And, so this was a building that was really not designed to conserve at all. And a bunch of companies, among them Rocky Mountain Institute, went in there a couple of years ago, and they actually took a whole floor of the building and made it a window factory and put in energy-efficient windows and some other major improvements. And it wasn't cheap. Okay, this cost $20 million. Of course, when you have hundreds of tenants in a big building like that, the cost is spread out across a bigger base. But here's the really cool thing. That $20 million is making them more than $4 million a year, and that was with 2007 gas prices, or 2008. By now, it's probably making them more like $5 or $6 million a year because fuel is so much more expensive than it was, so using less of it pays back faster. So what that means is in 5 years, you have paid back your whole $20 million investment. In the next 5 years, you've made $20 million that you didn't have to spend by doing nothing. And let's say by the time the third cycle rolls around, you have to put some into maintenance. So maybe you're only going to make back $12, $15 million that time. Still sounds like a pretty good deal to me.
I agree with you. I mean, that's incredible.
I mean, where can you invest any money and get a 20% return?
You can't find it now. You know that, Shel. It's hard to get that 20% bump up at any company. Even if you're new, it's hard,
So investing in energy efficiency can give you a 20% return and give you a complete payback in 5 years. Why isn't everybody doing it?
I agree, and I'm a big believer in going green, et cetera, and I always, one of my favorite stories to tell is Mike Krause from Dirty Jobs. In San Francisco, they have a 50% recycling rate. And I'm just wondering, why can't we do the same thing that San Francisco is doing right now with our products and services and replicate that across the U.S.? I'm just wondering, why can't we do that? I just don't know.
We have the technology. All we need is the will.
Yeah.
You know, I made a decision probably 6 or 7 years ago that I was only going to buy recycled paper. It's one little thing that I can do as an individual, okay? And in the case of the household paper products, if I buy the Marcal, it doesn't even cost any more. You know, if I buy 7th generation, yes, it does. In the case of my copy paper, it does cost me more money. It costs me $40 to $50 a case for recycled paper versus maybe $25 a case for plain. But my way of dealing with that cost situation was I went and bought a duplexing printer. I needed a new printer anyway, so I got one that prints on both sides of the page. And the 40% of paper that I'm saving balances out the extra price I'm paying per case to go recycled. So I probably come out a little bit ahead in the deal. And certainly I feel better about helping to create the market for that recycled paper so that more cities can do what San Francisco is doing.
Absolutely. Let me be devil's advocate here. So the show is about sales. It's about increasing sales and kind of giving people tips and tricks about how to increase sales. So an executive, a sales professional goes into a company and says, you know, here's my proposal. It's $100,000. Let's just use that for this example. And then the next person comes in, and this is a Go Green company, and it's $105,000. What are some, because it's a Go Green company, and just like you just pointed out, going green is more expensive to the consumer, which I think is hilarious. Even my local energy company right now, if I want to buy good energy or Go Green energy, it's $7.50 more a month. But what are some things that they can say about that $5,000 increase over their competitor that maybe is not a Go Green company?
Okay, well, let's say it's a piece of equipment, and let's say it's a piece of equipment with a 10-year shelf life, okay? So
yes, absolutely.
$10,000 a year versus $10,500 a year. And then let's say that piece of equipment, because it's designed with green in mind, let's say it uses 30% less fuel. And let's just say that the fuel costs are $2,000 a year. Okay, so you would be saving, $600 every year on fuel, and you're paying an extra $500 a year, so you're coming at $100 a year ahead. While you only end up with a net benefit of $1,000 by the end of the cycle, that would assume, number one, constant fuel prices, which we're not going to have. So the chances are very good that in 10 years the $4 a gallon pump price will be more like $6. Because oil is only going to get more expensive. It's
I know.
The easy stuff is gone. And, so even discounting the inflation of fuel prices, you're still coming out monetarily ahead over the life of the equipment. Plus, you get credits that you can use with the Environmental Protection Agency and other groups to show that you've reduced your carbon output. You begin, when you look at the whole picture, you begin to see that the small extra cost of going green is actually a cost savings between the tax credits and the carbon credits and the actual net lower cost of operation. And the chances are good also that this piece of equipment might have actually a longer shelf life because it's going to use fewer moving parts and less complicated systems to get the job done. So overall, you're going to save money with it. So that's the argument that a salesperson would use to sell that kind of piece of equipment.
Absolutely. The long-term effects, I guess that's the message to the listeners is,
yeah.
You have to...
It does require long-term thinking. You can't just look at today's purchase price.
Absolutely, and it goes back to a simple thing. Are you trying to sell something one time or a lifetime? And the real sales professional would sell them over a lifetime, not just the one and done. Show the value, show that, and also maybe, and now that you went with a Go Green company in your last contract, let's get some PR out of this.
Exactly.
Let's put a press release together,
And then you can reach that green market, and then you can bring in more revenue as well as lowering your expenses.
Absolutely. And a lot of companies miss that opportunity to leverage the Go Green atmosphere is because they're like, it is a little bit more expensive to go in there. But on the other hand, you can spin it and say, now we're a Go Green company. We just went with this person, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Yeah. One of the best chapters in Guerrilla Marketing Goes Green is about that, reaching the green consumer and how to get the maximum marketing benefit out of the green things you're doing.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit more about what the listeners can get by purchasing your book. I mean, I just wrote a book. There's 10 billion books out there. What are the advantages of purchasing your book, Shel?
Okay, well, first of all, there are a lot of books out there on marketing, and there are a lot of books out there on going green, but very few that really talk about marketing green, about that synthesis. Mine is one that does, and it does it from the perspective of looking at the easy and cheap things you can do, both to go green and to really reach that green consumer, and how to shift mindsets in ways that even can turn marketing from a cost to a revenue stream itself. And, of course, for your listeners, they can get a $2,000 bonus package with the book. I should mention that. If you go to, it's easier to spell than Guerrilla Marketing Goes Green, so you can go to greenandprofitable.com and click on the link about the book, and then after that, you go to the book's website, Guerrilla Marketing Goes Green, which is GUERRILLA, and on the menu there's a section about buying the book, and there's a link to the bonus page, and you can all you have to do is fill in the registration number you got from Amazon, or tell me what bookstore you bought it from, or whatever, and you can access all those goodies. So that's one thing extra. But the book itself, it's been resold to publishers in 3 different countries. It's published by Wiley. I just got the Turkish copies this week. They're really cute. I can't read them, of course. It's been on the Amazon category bestseller list for environmental books for 14 out of the last 16 months. And, it's won some minor awards. So it's a book that has something to say. It's also very easy to read, and like all the guerrilla marketing books out there that my co-author, J. Conrad Levinson, has been part of, it's easy to put into practice. I think that's one real key difference. This is not like PhD, need a dictionary every third word kind of thing. This is easy, actionable, practical material that will really turn your head upside down and inside out about the whole concept of marketing, and about marketing is no longer really about pushing a message to the consumer. It's in many ways much more about engaging in a two-way or multiple-way conversation. It's about presenting yourself as an expert guide and assistant when your customer needs help. It's a very, very different way of looking at the world, and I think a much better one.
Absolutely. I wish more people would jump on this. And let's go back to the beginning here. Shel, what gave you this internal passion? Obviously, you're very passionate about the project. Well, where did it start?
Well, it started very early, Mike. One of my earliest memories is that my parents threw a party, and their friends were smoking, and their friends were leaving their cigarette packs on the coffee table, and I was quietly crawling around destroying the cigarettes because I didn't want people smoking in my house. Age 3. So you can say that was the first green moment I can remember.
I agree.
And, growing up in the 60s and 70s as a child of the Vietnam War generation, I was very, very much aware of the First Earth Day and of the patterns of injustice that relate to the way resources are consumed and resources are divided. And basically, I come at this from a perspective of social justice. If we want to be able to live on this planet, we make sure that the people at the bottom of the pyramid have the basic things they need. And right now, society isn't set up that way. And a lot of the inequity has to do with environmental issues and resource consumption. And, I remember a time before everything was wrapped in plastic, and I'm not that old. And I remember a time when the average household had one telephone and one television. If they had air conditioning at all, it was only if they were quite wealthy. So we've seen a great deal of lifestyle shift in a very short time. And I'm not saying, believe me, I'm not saying go back to those lifestyles, but I'm saying, well, can't we find ways to use only as much energy and resources as we used back then, and still keep the quality of life with the tremendous improvements in efficiency that have come out of the last 30 or 40 years. I mean, it is amazing. Amory Lovins, who's someone I profile in the book, is an energy consultant. He was involved with the Empire State Project that I mentioned earlier. He lives in a house that he built as state-of-the-art in solar and conservation back in 1983. And even back then, the extra costs of his house paid for themselves in less than a year. That technology is so primitive compared to what we have now that you can look at the same. Let's say you have $10,000 to put into energy improvements. You can do it the conventional way and maybe save 5-10% of your energy costs, or you can use that money and think structurally about the project and come out with 40, 50, 80, 90% savings because the technology has improved so much. And you're seeing people looking at the world in different ways. I mean, like, okay, you look at bottled water, for example. Bottled water is a tremendous waste of water and of petroleum resources. So there's a guy that I met when I was speaking at a green festival this past fall. I met a guy who has developed a portable water bottle with a filter on it. So instead of buying a new bottle every time you're thirsty, you simply go to your tap or your water fountain that's nearby and run it through the filter you're carrying, and you have clean water, and you have it right then and there. And you're making one plastic bottle instead of hundreds. And no water is being wasted going down the drain to make that bottle or to fill it. So those sorts of really innovative leaps, I think you're going to be seeing more and more of them.
Absolutely. I hope so. Sometimes I don't think the average consumer understands that plastic is oil.
Yeah.
And oil is plastic. And, now we're paying through the nose right now in the fuel prices. They understand that average bottle of water is going to get more expensive. Everything is going to get more expensive. Everything's based on oil. Unfortunately, that's how we built our society.
But that's only really the last 50 years.
Absolutely.
We can go back to buying food in
the
bulk
Industrial
and
Revolution was
jars,
just,
for example. We can. There's another person I met at that same fair who sells something called Go Flushless. It's something you squirt in your toilet so the yellow stuff doesn't stain and doesn't stink, and you don't need to flush as often. The amount of clean water that gets flushed down toilets in this country is astounding. Of course, you can get much more complicated. You can put in gray water recycling systems that capture the water from your sink, say, and then use it in your shower and use it in your toilet. But, that's going to be out of the budget of most people. But a $5 bottle that's going to last you a couple of hundred flushes is not out of people's budget.
Absolutely, and I've gone to some restrooms recently that is a waterless system. I don't know what they're doing, but it is a waterless in Cincinnati. And actually, the Cincinnati Hotel is a waterless. They have a waterless system there. I don't know.
You'll see that more and more, particularly as larger companies are renovating and putting in new bathrooms and new plants and whatnot. They're going to go much more that way. You're going to see a lot more of these passive technologies that simply eliminate the need to use the resource in the first place with no issues around quality of life. But in the meantime, you want stuff. You want that low-hanging fruit. If you can reduce the number of times, if you have a conventional toilet, if you're reducing the number of times you're flushing it by 2/3, that's a good thing.
It is, absolutely. So, Shel, from a sales point of view again, as we're going to close down a little bit here, but from a sales point of view, to a sales professional and to someone that's out there in the field, what are some things that they can bring to the table about the Go Green initiative to maybe give them the initiative, the differentiator? We're always talking about unique value proposition. This is a home run. I mean, if you buy Shel's book and you listen to the Go Green strategy, that is unique. So what can they do?
Well, first of all, you can focus your presentations on the life cycle costs and benefits, where the green is almost always going to win out. You can go after the low-hanging fruit. You can say, here on a continuum, here are 10 things you can do. These first 4 will cost you nothing or close to nothing. Let's start with those. And then you can earmark the savings towards some of the more expensive things later. You can, again, focus on the long-term issues, the need to show the government that you're doing the right thing, the carbon trading economy, if you're coming in as a player in that, as somebody who's reduced their carbon so much that you actually have carbon credits to sell, that can be a very compelling argument for the mid-sized to larger company. There's just everywhere you look. It's a complex web of benefits all over the place to this. Employee productivity is something you don't often hear as a green benefit, but the truth is study after study shows that when companies are working in a greener, when people in companies are working in a greener environment, they take fewer absence days. They work harder. They get more done because they're comfortable in their office in a way that they wouldn't be in a sort of heavily chemically treated, hermetically sealed, can't open the windows kind of office building. And that has dollar figures attached to it, you know. So if the longer and harder you look at this, the more you find that the advantages of going green are just astronomical, and the disadvantages of not going green are equally astronomical. And, you know, like
Absolutely.
any good salesperson, you want to show both the pleasure of doing and the pain of not doing.
Well, you just want to throw the extra value in there. You know, it's always about value. People are looking for value. And, you know, here's one thing. And you might meet someone that is a very go-green person, and that will resonate with the person that's about to purchase your product, and you've differentiated yourself. We got to close down here, but tell them how they could contact you and your website information, and then we got to close it down.
You can reach me at greenandprofitable.com, and the book is Guerrilla Marketing Goes Green. That's GUERRILLA. And again, if you buy the book, you can get that $2,000 bonus package by simply registering on the Guerrilla Marketing Goes Green site. But go Green and Profitable because you can get there from there, and it's easier to spell. I do a lot of individual consulting with companies and organizations that want to go green and have the benefit of marketing their green commitment. And I can be reached by phone at 413-586-2388. And, of course, that information is on the Green and Profitable website if you didn't get that.
Shel, I learned a lot. And, you know, I think the value back to the listeners is, you know, if your company is a go-green company, you have to be presenting that in your presentation. It's 100% home run, and if it resonates with the buyer, that just makes more sense. So I am a go-green person myself, and I encourage all companies to do it and all sales professionals to try to help out the environment, Mother Earth. And, Shel, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. I greatly appreciate it. And I wish everyone good luck on their next sales call. So thank you, Shel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy your day now.
Okay.